Are you sure you ever had a real call sign, or is that just another story you tell to feel important? The voice sliced through the low music of the coastal bar, sharp, cocky, and dripping with the kind of arrogance that only comes from youth, ego, and too much alcohol. Glasses clinked. Pool balls cracked. The warm yellow glow of the hanging lights swayed slightly above the tables as late evening chatter filled the air. But that one line? It shut everything down. Every head near the bar turned, some slow, some sudden, as the words hung there like a thrown knife waiting to land. The man being mocked sat alone at the far end of the counter. Early 60s. Weathered face. Heavy jacket despite the warm night breeze drifting through the open doors. His hands were steady on his glass, steady in a way that didn't match his age. He hadn't flinched. Not even a blink. Across from him stood Petty Officer Cole Mercer, broad-shouldered, loud, a newly pinned Navy SEAL with a confidence that filled rooms he didn't belong in. The tension sharpened as more patrons noticed the confrontation. Everyone sensed a storm brewing long before the thunder reached the bar. Mercer leaned closer, the corner of his mouth tilting in a smirk he probably practiced in the mirror. "Come on, old-timer. What did they call you? Coffee runner? Chair warmer? Or were you just the guy sweeping the hangar floors?" A few of his teammates chuckled from a nearby table, young SEALs fresh from training, shirts tight around their shoulders, faces flushed from victory shots and adrenaline. They'd been celebrating their first completed maritime interdiction certification. Confidence was overflowing, leaking into every gesture, every laugh. But their laughter faded when the older man slowly turned his head. Just his eyes moved first. Cold, measured, focused in a way no one expected. A bartender polishing glasses froze mid-wipe. A pair of Marines at the pool table exchanged looks. A middle-aged couple at the corner booth leaned in unconsciously. Mercer didn't notice any of it. He tapped the bar twice, impatient. "I'm asking nicely before I start guessing louder. What's your call sign if you ever had one?" The older man didn't answer. He simply reached for his drink and took a slow sip, his fingers curling around the glass with a deliberate steadiness. It wasn't frailty. It was control. A veteran seated 2 stools away, a retired corpsman with faded ink on his forearms, shifted, his eyes narrowing. He recognized that stillness. He'd seen it before. The quiet before violence. The silence before something irreversible. Mercer scoffed. "Figures. Guys like you pretend you are someone. Real operators," he thumped his chest. "We earn our names." Still nothing. The room shifted. Air tightened. Even the music felt quieter. The older man's silence was beginning to feel dangerously intentional. Mercer's teammates started paying real attention now. Not the joking, amused kind. This time their posture tightened, shoulders squared. They knew the vibe had changed, even if Mercer was too fueled by pride to notice. He stepped closer until he was nearly chest to shoulder with the older man. "Are you deaf or just scared to say it?" I asked a question. No reaction. Just the same slow, steady breath. A whisper traveled through the crowd. "Leave it, Mercer," but it didn't reach him. He leaned in, voice low but cruel. "I'll even let you make one up. Call signs don't matter if nobody remembers you." The older man set down his drink with a soft tap, the kind of sound that felt louder than it was. His hand didn't shake. Not even a tremor. A quiet, inner voice, almost like a breath, floated through Mercer's mind for the tiniest second. "This man isn't what he looks like." But he pushed it away. The corpsman at the bar exhaled slowly, murmuring under his breath, "Kid, don't." The entire room held its breath as Mercer straightened. "All right. If you won't answer, maybe you're just full of it." The older man finally spoke. Not loud. Not emotional. Just a low, controlled whisper. "Son, you're not ready to hear it." The bar froze. Mercer blinked. "What did you say?" Another whisper, calm, unshaken. "You don't call out a name you aren't prepared to face." Mercer barked a laugh, trying to shake off the unease spreading in his chest. "Oh, I can face anything. Try me." For the first time, the older man turned fully toward him, and the temperature in the room felt like it dropped. A faint hum filtered into the soundscape, like an old memory surfacing. A subtle production cue. Low, distant helicopter blades, fading into silence. Some men don't boast. They warn you, and you should listen. The call sign he feared was about to surface like a ghost from another war. The front door swung open just then, carrying a gust of night wind and the heavy sound of boots. 2 older Navy officers walked in, one commander and one senior chief, coming from the pier after a late inspection shift. Their eyes scanned the room instantly. They felt it. That crackling tension. That stillness that meant violence was one breath away. Commander Rourke, a man with a graying beard and the kind of stern presence that made junior sailors straighten up, paused mid-step. His gaze locked on the older man at the bar. His expression changed. Not in confusion. Not in curiosity. But in something far heavier. Recognition. The senior chief beside him whispered, "Sir, is that who I think it is?" Rourke didn't answer. His jaw tightened. Mercer noticed the officer staring and puffed his chest, thinking he'd gained support. "Evening, sirs. Just asking this guy a simple question. Trying to figure out his so-called call sign." Rourke stepped forward slowly, measured and cautious. His eyes remained locked on the older man. "Don't," he said quietly, almost pleading. "Just don't push further." The bar went dead still. Mercer frowned. "What? He's no one." Rourke swallowed. "He's the reason half the men on this base ever made it home." The SEAL's confident smile finally cracked. A hush rolled through the bar like fog creeping across the floor. And that was before the real revelation began. Mercer looked between Rourke and the older man, confusion replacing his bravado. What are you talking about? Who is he?" The older man still didn't answer. He didn't even look at Rourke. But Rourke took a slow step closer. "Sir," he asked gently, "is it really you? After all these years?" A faint flashback effect washed into the scene, colors desaturated, a low engine hum in the background as if memory itself were awakening beneath the lights. The older man's fingers tapped twice on the bar. A pattern. Not random. The corpseman's eyes went wide. "No way. I've seen that tap before, that's..." Rourke finished for him. "A signal." Mercer's chest tightened. "Signal for what?" The commander turned toward the young SEAL, his face stern. "Kid, in the Blackwake operations 20 years ago there was a ghost. A man who ran solo extractions when whole teams went dark. He pulled out operators nobody else could reach. Nobody ever saw him arrive. Nobody ever saw him leave." One of Mercer's teammates whispered, "Blackwake's classified." Rourke nodded. "Parts of it were. But some of us were there." He pointed slowly at the older man. He wore no standard patch. No squad markings. Just a faded emblem of a skeletal hand holding a compass. Rourke described the emblem, an unofficial patch known on some bases, whispered among operators, "The hand that guides the lost." Mercer shook his head, refusing to believe it. That's just a story SEALs tell rookies." "No," Rourke said quietly. "It's a warning." The bar's lights flickered slightly, another subtle production cue, like the past brushing against the present. All eyes returned to the older man. He hadn't moved. He hadn't blinked. And that stillness was louder than any threat. Everyone sensed the truth was about to hit harder than any punch. Mercer steadied himself and stepped forward again, though his confidence was now a thin mask stretched over rising dread. "I'm done with the stories. I want to hear it from him." He jabbed a finger toward the older man. "You. Tell me your call sign." Slowly, so slowly it scraped against the nerves of every person watching, the older man turned his full attention to Mercer. His posture straightened, shoulders settling into a stance that didn't belong to a civilian. The kind of posture carved from decades of discipline and survival. He spoke. Only 2 words. 2 quiet, devastating words. "The Reaper." The entire bar fell silent. Not a glass clinked. Not a breath sounded. Even the background music felt like it faded out of fear. Mercer's teammates stiffened, color draining from their faces. The corpseman's glass slipped in his hand, landing with a dull thud on the counter. Commander Rourke's spine straightened like he had just been saluted by a ghost. Mercer whispered, That's impossible." Rourke exhaled shakily. The Reaper was a myth. A shadow. Operators prayed he'd show up when things went bad. We never knew what he looked like. Nobody did. His eyes darkened. But the call sign was real. The older man lifted his sleeve slightly, revealing proof beat number 2, the personal token. A small, jagged scar slicing across his forearm in the shape of a half-moon. Below it, tattooed in faded ink, was the same skeletal hand emblem Rourke described. Not vibrant. Not showy. The bar inhaled as one. Mercer stumbled back a step. But the Reaper vanished. They said he went rogue. They said. The older man cut him off. His voice was calm. Steady. Unapologetically cold. "I left because the fighting didn't stop. It just changed shape." Flashback color shift, brief, sharp, showing silhouettes of night operations, fast ropes cutting through darkness, gloved hands dragging wounded operators to safety, and the echo of distant radio static. The bar snapped back into present time. Mercer swallowed hard. Why would a man like you be in a place like this? A faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of the older man's mouth. Peace, he whispered. Something you don't understand yet. Some legends don't return for glory. They return to stay forgotten. But the fallout of the reveal was only beginning to hit. Mercer's chest rose and fell faster now. The adrenaline hadn't vanished. It had flipped into something colder, heavier. Fear wore many faces, and tonight it wore the face of a man who once believed himself untouchable. The room shifted around him. Not physically, emotionally. Every patron in the bar seemed to stand a little straighter. Some veterans removed their caps instinctively. Others lowered their eyes, a gesture of respect, of apology, of reverence. The SEAL team that had laughed minutes earlier now looked like chastened recruits caught stealing from their own armory. None of them dared speak. The bartender, voice trembling, whispered, "Sir, may I get you another drink?" "On the house." The older man gave a single nod. Mercer tried to steady his voice. I didn't know." The older man drank quietly, saying nothing. Rourke stepped closer to him, not as a superior officer, but as a man paying respect to someone who had once saved lives in the shadows. "Why come back here?" Rourke asked softly. The older man didn't answer at first. His eyes drifted toward the doorway as if he were watching ghosts slip in and out of his memory. Then he finally murmured, "To remind myself that the world can be quiet." A soft hum vibrated through the room again, distant engine noise fading quickly, another production cue signaling the past retreating. Mercer stepped forward, shame thick in his voice. "I made a mistake. I disrespected someone I shouldn't have." The older man didn't look up. "You disrespected everyone who didn't make it home," he said calmly, not unkindly, just truthfully. Mercer's knees felt weak. The room held its breath. But justice, real justice, had not yet been delivered. Commander Rourke turned toward Mercer, jaw clenched. Petty Officer Mercer. Front and center. Mercer stiffened, instincts kicking in. He stepped forward, shoulders tense, gaze lowered. "You embarrassed your team," Rourke said. "You embarrassed the uniform. And worse," he motioned toward the older man, "you insulted a man who carried more men out of hell than you've ever trained with." Mercer swallowed hard. Sweat trickled down his spine. Rourke continued, voice like gravel. "You will write a formal apology. You will redo your respect and cultural competency modules. And you will spend the next 2 weeks assisting with base support operations." Mercer nodded, each word hitting like a blow. "Yes, sir." "And Mercer," Rourke added, leaning in slightly, "if you ever treat another veteran that way again, you'll lose your trident before you even begin your real career." "Yes, sir." Rourke exhaled sharply and stepped aside. But then something unexpected happened. Mercer turned toward the older man, heels clicking together. And he saluted. Not casual. Not sloppy. A full, perfect salute. The older man didn't return it. He simply nodded. Because legends don't need gestures. Their existence is the gesture. But the final moment, the one the bar would never forget, was still approaching. The bar slowly resumed breathing. The music rose again. Glasses clinked softly. Conversations returned in whispers, not wanting to disturb the gravity still hanging in the air. Mercer lingered. The weight of his actions pressed deep into him, reshaping the arrogance that once filled his chest. He approached the older man cautiously. "Sir, if I may ask, how did you get that call sign?" The older man finished his drink, set it down gently, and turned, not in anger, not in pride, but in a strange, quiet sadness. He spoke softly. "When they sent me where no one else would go, I didn't go to take life." He paused. "I went to bring men home." Mercer looked stunned. "Then why the Reaper? That sounds like..." The older man cut him off, voice heavy with memory. "Because the only thing more terrifying than death is the man who walks into it willingly to pull others out." Silence rippled through the bar again. A whisper production cue drifted through the room, soft radio static fading into quiet. Some call signs are earned in ways the world will never fully understand. The older man stood, left a few bills on the counter, and walked toward the exit with the same steady posture he'd carried through every moment of the evening. Heads bowed as he passed. No one dared follow him into the night. Outside, the coastal wind tugged at the older man's jacket as he stepped into the dim parking lot. The neon sign from the bar flickered against the asphalt, painting shifting colors across his boots. He paused just for a moment. A distant foghorn echoed from the harbor. A soft, low thrum, almost like the memory of rotor blades, hovered in the air before fading into the sound of waves. He exhaled long and steady. Then he walked away. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. A legend returning to the shadows where legends belong. And inside the bar, every person who had witnessed the moment knew one thing. They would remember the Reaper for the rest of their lives.